You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Bible Guys.
Howdy, howdy.
And we are here today on a Friday if you're listening in real time.
Or whatever day you're listening.
Correct. That's why I said if. Mm-hmm. I did say that. Mm-hmm. I caveated that.
Yeah, I heard you.
And
so did everybody else. I was just clarifying. I didn't want anybody to feel left out.
We are wrapping. Well, I think we're wrapping up the rain part of the flood in our story, because we've been covering this thing for several podcasts now. So before we get into that, we have a segment today.
We do.
And the segment is called "Who's Most Likely?"
Who's most likely?
Yes.
So I like these.
Yeah, I do too. And
I haven't looked at this at all.
No, I have not glanced at
seen
this
it once.
at all. So the goal is for us to say it as fast as we can, sort of like an instinct response, right? To see if we agree or disagree.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
Number one, who's most likely to have the best snacks?
Oh, me.
Jeff.
Me.
For sure.
Without a doubt.
Yes. In fact, I would say I'm really not a snack person, but I do enjoy when somebody prepares snacks for me.
I like to graze.
Like to graze. Mm-hmm. That's really funny. All right, you want to take the next one?
I don't even have it in front of me.
Okay, I'll ask them.
Oh, go ahead.
Number two, who's most likely to hand make you a birthday present?
You.
That'd be me.
By far you.
Yes.
You skip the birthday presents. You used to hand make your kids lunch sacks.
Yeah, lunch sacks every day. Yeah. By the way, it wasn't every day. It was when I had time. So it was a couple times a week, most likely. So
literally, you've done 1,000. You've done more than 1,000 lunch bags.
I would definitely say that that's true.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
that's about. Let me add it up. Carry the 1,000 more than I did.
Right. Hey, by the way, it started off that I actually just drew simple things like stick figures and like, hey, how you doing, kind of things. And then one day I decided that, I'm going to go downstairs like an hour early. I'm going to draw like this, piece of artwork or something. And then what ended up happening was my daughter, like in junior high, would go to school and they would all gather around. They'd say, "Oh, let me see your lunch bag. What'd your dad do?" So if the next day I drew like a stick figure, they go, "Oh."
Oh, so now they're voting.
Now, well, yeah, they're disappointed.
Yeah.
Because I have now let Tori's friends down.
You push the bar too high.
Wait.
This is a warning to all the parents.
Yes.
Don't start pushing the bar up or you can't live up to it tomorrow. I'm joking. I was only joking about that.
Well, when it comes,
some people go, "That's pretty wise. I'm not going to do anything good for my kids."
Well, when it comes to, this, to be honest, I was glad for it to be over. I mean, I loved every second of it, but it was I literally had to say, I got to get up tomorrow an hour early to draw on the bags. I would force myself to get up and go downstairs. Again, not all the time, but I would, and
you're a real artist. I mean, some of these are really spectacular.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I heard that the Louvre's trying to get a few of them. Yes, I'm gonna put it right next to Mona Lisa.
My favorite one of all the ones that I did was Lilo and Stitch. I did Stitch. Oh, and I liked that one.
You liked that one?
It was really good.
Okay, good job.
Anyway,
that's the second question.
Number three, who's most likely to forget to return a borrowed item?
Me.
Is that you?
Yeah.
I would definitely say you.
Yeah. I'm forgetful.
That did not sound like me.
Yeah, I really don't like borrowing things, but it's because I forget that I have them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a hard time asking for help from people.
Okay.
Hey, I need this fixed or that fixed. And I'm not a handy guy, but I have a hard time asking for help. And then I have a hard time borrowing things from people.
Now, we're alike in a lot of ways. We are very different in that way.
Yeah.
I have no problem asking anybody to help me.
Yeah.
And
it's not a pride thing. It's an embarrassing thing. I feel embarrassed about asking somebody to take time out of their busy schedule to help me with something. So, yeah.
And then the other thing is when something is not in its place, if I borrow a neighbor's something or the other, and it's every day I say, this doesn't belong here. This doesn't belong here. This doesn't belong here.
Right.
Or I'll say, if I loan something out, I'm like, where's my rake? Where's my rake? Every day. Why haven't I had my rake yet?
That's why I don't like to borrow things, is I assume that's how they feel about it. Or I haven't thought about it since the minute I used it.
Yeah.
I think you probably are mad at me that I haven't given it back
Not
yet.
mad, just wondering where's my rake.
Yeah. Yeah. I struggle borrowing. Hey, there's a difference. We don't have very many differences. That's one of them.
Yeah, that's a difference, yeah. All right, here, number 4. Who's most likely to cheat at a board game?
Oof.
Okay, so I
See,
by
I don't think either
default-
one of us cheat.
By
I don't think either
default.
one of us cheat. I think both of us leverage the rules to our advantage.
now that would be true.
Yes.
But I'll be very honest. I
It
think
makes me mad when people cheat at games.
people know, a lot of people who know me know that board games are sort of our thing.
Yes.
And the one thing that I am famous for in my family is I will not cheat.
Yeah. Now, I win so many games with my family, they accuse me of cheating.
Right.
They do.
Right.
But it's not. It's that I know the rules and they didn't read the rules. When I try to read the rules to everybody, everybody's like, oh, man, I don't want to read it. Let's just start. We'll figure the game out. And then when you use the rules to your advantage, they go, you're cheating. I didn't know that, right? And it's not cheat. It's in the rules.
Yeah.
Read the rules.
I'll do that if it's within the rules, definitely.
Absolutely.
So,
So I've been pitching you a few games lately. I've got a couple games I need you to
yeah, I
learn
need
to
to. I need to take you up on those. I wrote them down, by the way. So I have
did
them.
you?
I have them. Yeah. So what's the answer then? Who's most likely to cheat?
I don't think either one of us are cheaters.
Oh, we're going to say no. We're going to say no.
We decline to answer that question.
We decline
How
to answer.
dare you? How dare you, Desiree,
How dare you?
to assume that one of us would cheat?
That's so funny. All right, here we go.
Impugn upon our character.
Number 5. Who's most likely to wind up in the ER because of a paper cut?
Me. No, not a paper cut. You.
Yeah, me.
Yeah.
Jeff's thumb can fall off, and he's like, I think we can take care of this at home.
Yeah. So a couple years ago, you see that big scar on my finger?
Yeah, that's a huge scar,
so-
actually. It's kind of gross.
So we had a storm blow through my yard, knock down some trees.
Yeah.
I couldn't get my chainsaw started.
Ooh.
So I ran
I don't like the story already.
I ran a cord out. I grew up splitting wood, cutting wood, chainsaws, all that kind of stuff my whole life. Splitting wood, I had 50 face cord a year. I would use a chainsaw for hours at a time. So I'm comfortable with all that stuff, but chainsaw, I couldn't get it started for whatever reason. It'd been a long time since I used it. So I ran a cord out and I hooked up my Sawzall, and I had one of those long wood blades like that. And they have offsetting teeth like this. So they go through wood really easy. And so I was holding this branch. I was using the Sawzall. My son was standing next to me. I said, David, don't ever use a Sawzall to cut branches with one hand because it can just jump out and get you.
Right.
And David was like, okay. And so, you got to hold it with both hands. But I was holding the branch here, and it jumped as I said it, landed on my hand, cut me all the way to the bone. And so I grabbed my hand like this, and I turned to my son, and I said, go get your mom. He goes, what just happened? And I went, ah! He took off running to go get my wife. I have to go into the hospital and get some stitches. And the girl that was doing the stitches, it was her first time to ever do stitches. So the doctor came, and you can see it was a really jagged cut, right? It was really jagged.
It looks like epic, actually.
Yeah. And so it was really jagged. And this is my 21st time in the hospital for stitches. I've been 21 times I had to go for stitches. So I have it covered up. This girl comes in. The doctor goes, this is her first time, but you mind? I mean, that's a mess. Do you mind if she does it? I say, yeah, that's fine. So she looks like she's going to die. And I'm calming her down. You're going to be okay. Because the doctor leaves. Because she was nervous that he was there looking over her shoulder. She'd done it on cadavers. She'd never done a live person. So I'm walking through, explaining to her, you're going to be okay. All this stuff. She just starts to touch, my whole hand's numb. She just starts to touch me. I yell, and she almost passed out. Like she had to get a fan. She's like I should. And then finally it calmed her down after that, right? It didn't hurt me. It didn't do anything.
That's so
and then
funny.
I'm guiding her through how to sew my hand. No, you need to pull it on the inside because it's so wide. She had to give me stitches on the inside and then the outside to do it. It was really, really funny. So yeah,
Wow.
I live going to the hospital for stitches, but not for paper cuts. Usually it's cut your finger off kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, and my family would say that I'm sort of a wimp when it comes to pain.
A wimp. Delicate.
Delicate. Yeah, delicate. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I we had actually asked my family, and I texted them. Remember?
So if you're trying to think historically, where do we fit? I think I kind of fit in the Daniel Boone era.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you kind of fit in like the Louis XIV era.
Oh my word! Really?
The wigs, the lace, the powder on the cheeks.
Oh my gosh! Where did that come from?
Bright shiny buckles and your tight shiny pants.
This is a new thought. I do not agree with this. I rebuke this idea. This is not fair. I've been attacked.
Yeah,
and I have been accused.
No, I'm not. Okay, here we go.
That's so funny. All right, well, we need to move on. So we're gonna.
Well, so this is more of the flood part, right?
Yep.
So we're just going to pick right up on verse 17, I believe is where we're starting.
Genesis 7.
Genesis chapter 7, and we'll just read to the end of the chapter.
Yep.
Here, and it says, "For 40 days the floodwaters grew deeper, covering the ground and lifting the boat high above the earth. And as the waters rose higher and higher above the ground, the boat floated safely on the surface. Finally, the water covered even the highest mountains on the earth, rising more than 22 feet above the highest peaks. All the living things on earth died, birds, domestic animals, wild animals, small animals that scurry along the ground, and all the people. Everything that breathed and lived on the dry land died." That's an incredibly sad statement.
Ugh.
God wiped out every living thing on the earth, people, livestock, small animals that scurry along the ground, birds of the sky. All were destroyed. The only people who survived were Noah and those with him in the boat, and the floodwaters covered the earth for 150 days.
Well, now I'm glad our segment went long because this is terrible to talk about.
Well,
So, holy cow. And so the floodwaters covered the earth for 150 days. A lot of people, when they hear about the ark, people say, oh, Noah's in the ark for 40 days, but that's not true, right? Noah's in the ark for 100.
it rained for 40 days and 40 nights.
Right. And then he was in the boat, and it said the water covered for 150 days. But then Noah stayed in the boat long enough for it to start to drain as well.
That's right. 5 more months.
And so Noah was in the boat for how long, Jeff?
So
Like 1 year, right?
7.5 months
Oh,
after the 150 days. So tomorrow we'll read it.
okay. I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next week it unpacks how long all of that lasted.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. So, but yeah, that is pretty crazy. This is sort of a downer of a day since these are the only verses that we're talking about.
Well, there's several elements to it. One, I think, was this a local event, this flood, or was this a global, worldwide flood?
Well, it said the whole earth.
Yeah.
It said lifting the boat high above the earth. The waters rose higher than every surface of the mountains of the earth.
22 feet above the highest peaks.
Of the earth.
Yeah.
And all living things on the earth died, which means it's not local.
So the question would be, some people would say that God's goal was to wipe out all the people, right? That's the goal. The goal is to wipe out all the humans. Had the humans gone to every corner of the planet?
No.
Did they map it all? Had they already mapped it all out? If they'd mapped it all out, then it would have had to have, and had gone to every corner, then he would have had to flood the entire world. Or did he have to flood their world? Right? Like how we say like the Roman world or the Greek world. It wasn't the whole world. It was just a known world at their time, right? So there's some Christians that would say it wasn't a global, flood that flooded the entire planet, but it flooded every place that humans lived above those tallest mountains. That's what some would say. Others would say, nope, it flooded the whole planet, right? And so then the argument would be, well, are you saying that it went 22 feet above Mount Ararat at 5.5 miles high? Are you serious? Right? So I personally believe in a worldwide flood. What do you believe?
Yeah, I mean, only because that's sort of what it says. It says, finally, the water covered even the highest mountains on the earth. And it doesn't say the world in which humanity lived.
That's right.
It says the earth. It's referring to...
but it would have fulfilled God's purposes to have just flooded where people lived.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so that's why some people would say, because some geologists would say there is no evidence of a global flood. Other geologists say the only way you can explain everything is by a global flood. So there's disagreement among geologists. The geologists who reject the Bible would emphatically say there is no evidence of a worldwide flood. Christians or geologists who say, look, there's a lot of evidences here that we cannot justify just by stratification from time, means that there seems to be major cataclysms. For instance, most of the dinosaur levels, like say out in Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, they all seem to have died in this massive cataclysm, right? So their argument is, it was an asteroid, right? Others would say it didn't have to be. It could have been a flood. And by the way that it's stratified like this, they were also buried almost immediately. right? So there's all those things. They would point to great canyons and different places like this where massive amounts of erosion happened, but would have required, like for instance, in the Grand Canyon, some of the erosion that would have had to happen if everything was the same then as it is now, some of the erosion would have had to be that the river was flowing up in order to cut through a lot of the canyon, right? So the only way that could happen is if that there was water above it, right? Draining to be able to cut down.
Right.
So there's a lot of those kind of elements. People believe in an ice age covering most of the planet, but refuse to believe in water having flooded the planet. Ice and water are the same.
Right.
They're both H2O. So it's kind of funny how sometimes we build these arguments to justify our version and rejecting scripture, as opposed to just saying, what are the plausible answers? And the other one would be Mount Everest, didn't need to have been 26,000 feet tall at the time.
Yeah, not back then. It could have shifted.
Right. So we do know in tectonic shifts, and we do know that, there were times when the whole planet was all one giant continent and has broken into pieces. All that kind of stuff then throws up mountain ranges and all those kinds of things. So it doesn't mean that we had to have the Himalayas be completely covered. It could have been that all the mountains were the size of the mountains in Kentucky, for all we know, right? But it does say 22 feet above all of the mountains, and that the whole world, I believe, was flooded there. And it explains to me in a better way why we have the geologic record the way that it is, and why there are massive gaps in creatures and animals throughout that geological record.
Something that I've never looked into, I've only seen on like quick little clips, is you just referenced the fact that you said, we know that all continents were together and then they broke off into pieces. I've seen that before, but I've never heard about the details of that. So you're convinced that that's a truism?
Oh, absolutely. There's a thing, I don't know if we'll get to it, but when it starts to explain the in Genesis, you want me to just jump ahead? Genesis chapter 10.
Sure,
we're not going to read this.
Just for fun.
Genesis chapter 10, they're just giving lists of families. Jephthah had these kids, they all did these things. Ham had these kids, they all did these things, right? And make those long lists like the Bible's famous for. In Genesis chapter 10, under Shem, it says, Eber had 2 sons. The first was named Peleg, which means division, for during his lifetime, the people of the world were divided into different language groups. That's the only translation that says it that way. The other translations say, for in his time, the world was divided. Right? And so it seems to be, not that it was a language thing, but it was the planet. The planet broke. I think the King James actually says was broken, right? So it's kind of one of those things where some people would say, hey, maybe that's it, right? So the New Living Translation is the only translation that says it was broken by languages. Every place else says the planet was broken.
And that would make sense too, because people from different continents can be isolated enough to speak different languages.
Yeah, but that would then be saying that it was, so the Bible already told us when the languages were divided.
With Tower of Babel.
At the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
Right. And this, Peleg would have been much longer after that. So, yeah. It's kind of an interesting thing. I'll read it to you. Go ahead. I'll read it to you in a different translation. Genesis 10.
Okay. So you're looking up a different translation of that same verse, you're saying?
Yeah. That's all I was doing. I was pulling that up. It was 1025.
Which translation is this that you're reading from?
This is just New King James, for instance, says, to Eber were born 2 sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided. And it seems like in the original languages, it's using earth, not people. It's not using world. It's using planet kind of words there. And so maybe that was it when it divided up. But I mean, man, you can put the whole planet back together like a puzzle.
Yeah, I've seen those things before.
Right, South America fits into Africa. North America fits very well into Europe. If you look at like Ireland fits perfectly back into the island of England. England fits back into the coast of Europe. You just go on through most of the world fits back into one great big giant continent. And that makes sense to me. It also explains why so much technology is the same all around the world. Pyramids, for instance, and different things. So, yeah.
Interesting. Well, I'll tell you what, that is a lot to come from just this passage, isn't it? So yeah, we're just talking about all sorts of things. We haven't talked about the sadness yet, the sadness part. The fact that this portion of scripture that we read destroys all life.
Yeah.
So God is fed up with the evil and the corruption. And so everything gets wiped out. And it says the only people who survived were Noah and those with him in the boat. And so those with him means his family, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no indication that there was another.
No.
Family
It was
in there.
his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives.
Right.
And then I'd imagine then if there were any grandchildren or something like that, but it doesn't mention them.
Yeah. And then from that, then he repopulates the earth.
So let's talk about that. If you think of, oh, look how sad it is, all these people died, there's a sadness in that because every human life matters. If you look at it from God's perspective, evil is that bad. It was a full-blown cancer, and all they ever thought of was evil. That's what it says.
Complete and total evil.
Yeah, right? That's all they can. So God was literally cutting the evil out, this cancer out of the planet. And he said, hey, I've got this one family that honors me. He literally, talking about patience, he let it get down to almost nobody left before he finally decided, I'm going to cut it all out. It's like the entire body is full of cancer. He decides he's going to cut all the cancer out to save the one heart or the one brain that's still not full of cancer. That's what he did. This is God's mercy on humanity, the fact that he let it go so far. What would have been worse is if there was nobody redeemable.
Right.
That would have been worse, right? And so it wasn't God that decided to destroy all these things. It was humanity's choice to keep rebelling against God and going to the point where the only thing they could even think about was evil. You have one family honoring God, and God says, okay, I got to cut this cancer out.
So do you think that the evil, the unredeemable evil mind was connected to the longevity of life? So for instance, people had lived it, done it all, and then got to the place to where they had experienced life to such a degree to where they were just like, hey, I'm now going to choose only the pleasure part, the evil pleasure part, right? Yeah. Or the evil greed part.
That's what he says, my spirit will not put up with humans for such a long time.
Right.
And then he cut their lifespan down to 120 years. Yeah. He's acknowledging these 900-year lifespans are just giving them the ability to discover even more evils.
Yeah, and
most of the time, the evil we choose to do is self-pleasure, right? We're finding a way to please ourselves, and it winds up taking us in the wrong direction. And I think 900 years of being able to figure those things out.
Yeah. So the idea that God cut our lifespan down, which is crazy, that part of it is so crazy to me. But that God would cut our lifespan down for our benefit.
Yeah.
And even though that, it's like we all say, man, we'd love to live 900 years, and God,
if you were healthy.
If you were healthy. But yet,
it just highlights the fact that this is dress rehearsal for eternity. 120 years or 920 years is nothing compared to 1.5 billion years in eternity.
Right. Or more.
And you're just getting started at 1.5 billion years, right? So eternity, this life is not the purpose. It's not the cause. It's just the beginning for us. And then after that, we have all of eternity. So it's God's grace to say, I'm not going to let you just infect yourself with so much evil for so long. I'm going to rescue you from it. I'm going to give you a merciful death physically, get out of this body, free you from it. I'm going to redeem you, set you free in eternity for total and absolute perfection, which is what he'd always planned for us in the beginning. So the fact that he's allowing this time to play out and any evil to exist is only because he's allowing every human that he'd always planned to come into fruition, to become actual, so that he can give them an opportunity to be saved as well.
Yeah.
So that's it. Hey, last thing, people sometimes ask, why do you believe in Noah? I say, because Jesus believed in Noah. Right. Over and over, Jesus references Noah as it was in the days of Noah, so it'll be in the end times. Jesus says that. Jesus talks about the flood. He talks about Noah's ark. Jesus believed in Noah. I believe in Jesus, so I believe in Noah.
Yeah, well, that's great. Yeah. That's a good case right there. So,
yep.
All right. Well, hey, that is a great place to wrap this up for now. And we're going to pick up in that story on Monday.
That's right.
On the Bible Guys.